Here we go then. Okay, so I'm going to talk through some nutrition principles. I realized a few weeks ago that I've been sharing a lot of content around mobility, which has been really, really helpful. Something I found really helpful the last 18 months or so, getting me back moving really well, and been really, really helpful for people that I work with online, clients in person, and people that come to my boot camp. Been able to really help them with different issues to be able to basically keep training. But something I realised as well through discussions, talking to people about this stuff, the nutrition, is that unless I keep talking about it, essentially because there's always someone new coming into one of my programs, there's a lot of, let's say, misconceptions, and it becomes very difficult to implement nutrition strategies in the sense if I'm not kind of going over it almost all the time. So that's what I'm going to do here. So we're going to run through some nutrition principles. We're going to look at just the principles overall. What is this thing called a calorie deficit? Now, my perception being inside the in a sense, fitness industry is that everyone knows about a calorie deficit from a couple of Facebook groups and things I'm in and just talking to people. I know that's not true. We're also going to talk about this concept of maintenance, what that is, and then looking at a surplus as well, because not everyone wants to lose weight. Obviously, a lot of people do. They want weight loss, they want fat loss. Some people want to maintain what they've done after a period of time, or it's good to do some maintenance rather than just always being in a calorie deficit, which is actually quite tough on the body, which we'll talk about as well. Then we're going to talk about a surplus, because some people actually want to add weight, they want to add size, they want to add muscle, maybe for because they enjoy training, that's what they do. Maybe because it's a sports thing. Obviously, I'm really involved in rugby, so I get guys, boys coming to me particularly. How do I add muscle to get better at playing rugby? So we're going to cover a little bit of that as well. Look at how to lose fat and weight. What are the principles? That's going to come really through the nutrition principles. A little bit of how to maintain, gain weight and muscle once you've done things, and a little quick go at being active and training principles. And then, since that can be a much bigger topic, we're just going to cover the basics here today. So let's fly into it. When we're talking about nutrition, we need to talk about the different food groups. Now, we could call these macro groups and micro groups. Now, your macro groups are the main ones you've probably heard of: your carbohydrates, your proteins, your fats. Your micro groups, there's a bit more to it than this, but essentially they're the vitamins and the minerals that you would get from across your nutritional intake. Should we say your diet? I don't like the word diet because it implies being on a diet. So we'll say from your nutritional intake. The main way that most of us are taught, like at school or kind of would be in the media mostly, is looking at what is a balanced diet. Now, it's a little bit out of whack, I would say. Certainly in the Western world, we have plenty of food, and we have lots of food that we can just easily go and buy, and we like treats and things like that. And a lot of the time, that would be carbohydrate focused. So, in a sense, that's where we're going wrong. But it's also not the right thing just to say, right, I'm going to reduce all those carbohydrates right down. I'll explain why now and the importance of all these different food groups. So each food group gives us something different that we need in our body. The carbohydrates provide energy, it's converted to sugar in the body. I've put a little star there because sugar is always like, oh no, no, too much sugar, this and that. Yes, there are health implications of too much sugar, but our carbohydrates that we eat are broken down in the body, they're digested. That's a good thing. That actually takes up calories to do digestion. But in a kind of in a realistic, balanced way, some sort of sugar intake is not going to be damaging to you. It's when it's excessive, and we'll talk about that as well in a minute. Protein is a great macronutrient. It is for tissue repair, cell turnover, as in your cells are always getting replaced, different ones at different rates, and you need the protein there to do that. So it's involved then in how good your skin is, how good your hair is, all the things that get replaced really quickly on a cellular level. So low protein can have issues with that. It's quite filling. So a good protein source will be a substantial filling part of a meal, which is why it's quite useful in terms of fat loss and weight loss. Fat, again, an energy source. Now, often, historically more so, fats have been like, oh no, too much fat, that is going to make you fat. But fats are necessarily really important as an energy source. They work with all the hormones we have in our body, our whole endocrine system, moving hormones around the body, making our bodies function. They work in cell processes. Most cells have like a sense a membrane, which some of it's compromised with fat, and then cellular transport. Getting things around the body occurs with fat associated to it. Now, on here, I've included alcohol, which I didn't say before, because it has a quite high calorific value, 7 grams per 7 calories per gram of alcohol. But in a balanced lifestyle, that's not going to be an issue. It's something to be aware of, because I've genuinely worked with people who will be saying, I've got all this right, carbohydrates, protein, fats, the balanced diet, this and that, but I'm still not losing any weight. Well, actually, because you're not counting alcohol. And I'll go into a little bit of this kind of science of that afterwards. It's not to say you have to cut anything out to be successful at weight loss and fat loss. It's more this right now, being aware of these different things. So macronutrients, there are vitamins and minerals. They can come from, and this is kind of a more practical thing, a variety of fruits and vegetables will come from other foods. Sometimes we need to supplement them. So a common supplement I recommend to a lot of people is magnesium. Magnesium historically would have been taken up from the soil into our fruits and vegetables, but because of intensive farming, there's a lot of a percentage of magnesium in the soil, so therefore it's a good one to supplement to boost that level. And magnesium is really good for helping you sleep and different health benefits like that. That's just an example of why you might need to supplement. So variety of fruits and vegetables will be most beneficial, and maybe you're thinking about, oh, this doesn't quite work in my body, what can I supplement with? Okay, let's go for the simplest thing to start with, and that would be maybe something I would recommend. So other food groups, touched on alcohol. Other factors, we're going to be looking at overall hydration. Hydration itself has essentially no bearing on weight loss. Actually, when we're a bit dehydrated, we're literally going to weigh a bit less. But we do need a good amount of hydration for water and other sources of liquid. Tea, coffee can count. Anything else that you would drink that is more water-based is going to contribute to overall hydration. And we've got fiber, which is really good for our digestion, and that's just good to be aware. Most of the time, if you're eating a balanced diet that includes fruit and vegetables, some carbohydrates, you are going to get a good amount of fiber going in. So that will kind of take care of itself. But that's what I touched on, is caffeine. Actually, I've left this on because I end up talking to a lot of young people about caffeine intake, because they love a Monster, they love a Red Bull, and actually the overall impact of that can actually affect your digestion. It happened to me years and years ago. I worked in a very stressful job in a very in an environment where it was 24/7. In fact, the restaurant was open 24/7 on the motorway services, and I was working long hours and end up using caffeine to keep me going, and caused quite a lot of issues there with digestion and things like that. So that's why that's on there. A regular kind of tea, coffee, caffeinated beverage intake is going to be in some ways beneficial. So that's just on there as a factor. So what is the main principle? Let's take a little drink. You might have heard this described in different ways, but the main thing is energy balance. Now, this is what we've got coming in, which is our food from all those macronutrients, what we drink, mainly alcohol is going to be the main contributing calories, but then we've got to think about things like milk in drinks, high milk in, say, something like a cappuccino or latte that you might buy out and about. They're going to have a contribution. And then the opposite side of our energy balance is workouts, exercise. This thing called NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just a basic way of saying the energy we use just to move around. So I'm just bobbling around doing this seminar right now. That has a calorie burn. Obviously not huge, but it's there. And then we've got this thing called BMR, which is basal metabolic rate. That is literally the amount of energy your body needs to stay alive. And if essentially you sat or lay down every day, there would still be a calorie need just for your internal processes to go on. So that is what BMR is, basal metabolic rate. On top of that, we have NEAT, Then we have exercise, workouts. There's another thing which is basically the energy we need to do digestion, which I touched on just before with protein. Makes you feel fuller, and actually, when you're digesting protein, there's a little bit more of a calorie need. Only a small marginal amount, but it's a factor as well. So those are the things that contribute to our energy balance. So in terms of fat loss and weight loss, we need to get our food level coming in, calories in, lower than what we're going out. So it's energy in is lower, what we've got going out is a little bit higher. I'm saying a little bit higher, somewhere between. I'm going to be quite good. I'm going to be conservative because a lot of people would go up, say 500 plus. I prefer 300 to 500 calories each day or spread out across the week, being of what you've got coming in versus what you've got going out. Because that's going to give you a nice balance. That's going to give you a nice amount of energy for life, to do what you want to do, to enjoy your workouts, things like that, and be working towards the goal of fat loss or weight loss. The mechanism that works under is when we're looking at fat loss or weight loss, we have the stored energy within us, basically our fat stores. So we are creating what's called a calorie deficit so that you can use those stores in your body as an energy source, therefore utilizing them up. So that is the main number one principle. So you've got calories in, there's calories out, or your intake versus your output. A little bit more going out, so you need to use those stores in the body. So that is the number one main principle. There's quite a few different ways to achieve that, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. One way to think about it, another way to think about it is energy balance as pounds. You actually want to do the opposite of what we're kind of doing in life, and have a lower income and higher spending. So when the income from your food and drink, literally incoming into the body. So say your body is your bank account. Well, less money coming in than you're spending, which flips that kind of thing on its head in terms of money and spending. So we're going to want to be spending a little bit more than we're actually earning. And I use this analogy because it's a good one when it comes around to one of the things we're going to talk about, which can be helpful, which is balancing the books in terms of using a diary or tracking. So spending more than we are earning in terms of calories. Do not recommend this in terms of your finances. So now let's get a bit deeper into calories. In 1 gram of protein, there's 4 calories. In 1 gram of carbohydrates, there's 4 calories. In 1 gram of fat, there's 9 calories. So that's where the factor of fats is much more energy rich comes into it. But this doesn't mean that 100 grams of chicken is 400 calories. That's where we need to use something like we can use a calorie tracker and things like that, or look on the back of the packet. So if you bought a 200 gram pack of chicken, essentially 2 chicken breasts, flip that over, it wouldn't say 800 calories. It would probably say something like 150 calories per 100 grams. Because within that chicken breast, there's a high percentage of water, and not all of what you eat of that chicken breast can be digested as protein. Some of it will just be digested and wasted. So clever people over time have done stuff to determine how much calories is in every single sort of food, really. Anything that you can put a barcode on, anything that is kind of regularly eaten, someone's done it somewhere where they've looked at it and gone, okay, we've done this experiment, we've burnt this, we've seen actually this is how they do it. I'll quickly explain it. Being a science teacher, they literally, in a controlled way, burn the thing you're talking about, the product, see how much it heats up water. Obviously, a bit more to it than that. And then that kind of basically determines how much energy is released from that food source. In a sense, that's kind of mimicking digestion and what we get in the body. But as we've gone through before, what we get from each macronutrient is actually different, how it actually works in the body. But if we're just purely looking at calories, that's where it comes from. Where are we? So alongside calories, then to be able to determine how many calories we're having, we're going to have to potentially do some sort of tracking. Because the danger, if you don't, is you're either going to still overeat and not get any results whatsoever, or we're going to undereat. After a few days, I feel like rubbish, and then probably end up overeating again. So I recommend tracking at least for a period of time to get an idea about how much you're actually eating, and then build, in a sense, a nutrition plan around that. So that, say, for instance, me personally, for my maintenance, so if I wanted to stay kind of exactly the same, my calories would need to be around about 2,900, 3,000. I roughly know what that looks like in terms of calories, because for at different periods, essentially for several years, I have tracked my calories. I can pretty much look at some food and know what calories are going to be in there. Now, it doesn't always mean I'm super strict and tracking all the time and everything like that. It just means I've developed that knowledge. And these app or doing a diary can be really helpful to get a handle on that. So going back to that financial example, if you were in real terms financially overspending, then you'd look at literally what's coming in, either on your bank statements or in an app. Look at what's going out, look at what's going wrong. That's essentially what tracking would do. Now, I know tracking is not for everyone, but it's a really good way to get a handle on it. My colleague's shouting at me at the moment. She wants to have some sort of interaction, bless her. So that's why I recommend tracking for a period of time or ongoing. Also, what it does, I'll come to this a bit more a little bit later, is gives you flexibility. As in, you could say, I am going to eat these 4 meals forever, because I know that will be within my calories. It's going to give me a good amount of protein, good amount of carbohydrates, good amount of fats, have a fiber, going to have my macronutrients, have a micronutrients, all in these different meals. But that's no flexibility to be able to go, actually, today I fancy having a croissant for breakfast. Okay, that's fine. So you can and then adjust the rest of the day. Because if you're doing a little bit of tracking and you've got that little bit of knowledge, you can adjust that and still be on track. So that's why I think tracking is a very, very helpful tool. As I say, not for everyone, but very helpful. So this is just an example of, you might set it up in an app. MyFitnessPal used to be the one that everyone used. I personally moved to a thing called Macros First now, or I do my tracking inside my PT Hub app, which is a coaching platform that I use for my clients. And it's all in there. You have it set up and go from there. That is something that would need a little bit of setting up, and with clients and people that I work with, I help them do that. This is clearly an old one, because my calories in here are 3,260, probably weighing a little bit more, and very, very high output at this point. So that's why that's there. Moving on. So benefits of tracking. It means you can keep an accurate diary and know what's going on. And then from there, we can start to make 2 or 3 realistic changes to your nutrition intake. Could be that you think, oh, I need to completely overhaul it and eat in this completely new, different way, because I have started training and I've got this goal of weight loss and fat loss. Probably comes down to tweaking a couple of things. Might be eat a bigger breakfast to reduce the amount of snacks that you have through the day, because the snacks you're having aren't the most helpful. Or it might be, and this is really true for most people, more protein across the day, making sure you have a portion of protein in most of your main meals week to week. That would be a really good way of then actually switching your intake. You probably bring your calories down, having more protein, which is going to help you feel fuller. It's going to be beneficial then for the activity and training you might well have started as well, alongside looking at adjusting your nutrition. And then it's another simple thing, like, can you have more fruit and low calorie snacks, because they are going to have they're going to be lower calorie than, say, grabbing a couple of biscuits, and they're going to be more filling. I know personally, and this is not the same for everyone, obviously, that if I have 2 biscuits, I definitely want 2 more. And it just goes from there. So getting a kind of making things as easy as possible for yourself by things that you're choosing. And that could mean being realistic about what you have in the house. So we had friends over the weekend. We got some stuff in for that. That was used up, won't replace it. So it's It's looking at what works for you. So those are just examples. There's a little bit of, in a sense, figuring out what needs to happen for you personally. So in a nutrition plan or nutrition principles, from what I've talked about, these would be the headlines. You're going to look at total calories for your goal. That might be fat or weight loss. You're going to bring the calories down a little bit below your daily need to create a calorie deficit. If you're trying to maintain, you're going to try and work out how many calories that you need to essentially stay the same in terms of your weight, in terms of your body shape. And that might be because you've been in a long period, 3 to 4 months of a calorie deficit, and actually your body needs to take a break. And actually things metabolically slow down. So maintenance is good at that point. Or you might be someone that wants to build muscle or size, or because you enjoy going to the gym and you're doing that for a period of time, or for sports performance, you're going to be fueling in a different way. Then prioritize protein, but made it more specific here, 0.8 to 1.5 pounds grams per pound of body weight. That could go a little bit higher, personal preference. But your kind of rough ballpark, nice place to be is 1 gram of protein per day per pound of body weight. So say I'll be around about 190 odd pounds at the moment, could be a little bit more. I'd be aiming for around about 190 to 200 grams of protein each day. I don't always get that. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, because you don't have to do everything exactly on each day. I'll show you that in a minute. And then the rest of your intake, carbohydrates, fats, what you like to eat, as long as it's within the calories, you do it to suit you as preferred. Some people are happy to reduce carbs down. They want to have extra fats, nuts, seeds, avocado. They're going to eat more fish, things like that. Their fats will naturally be a bit higher. They reduce their carbohydrates. Some people love their carbohydrates. They want to be able to have cereal for breakfast, oats, rice, potato. Fine. But that is no problem at all. Just need to get the right amount within your calorie total for each day. Okay, moving on. So, what to eat? It is up to you. And I know that's kind of, that might sound like a little bit of a cop out on my part, but everybody is different. Everybody has individual taste. Everyone has different lifestyle considerations. Some people are married, some people are single, some people have kids, and you've got to make it realistic to work for you. And it's got to be also then sustainable and become part of your lifestyle, because once you've lost fat, lost weight, got to a position you want to get to, if you just go kind of, well, that's done now, I'm off this plan that I've been on to do this, then it's going to go back the other way. And that is the whole culture of yo-yo dieting. All those people that start a diet in January, stop it in March, start a new one in May because the holiday's coming up, go off that, start a new one in September when the kids go back to school, go off that, go on something, oh my gosh, it's going to be Christmas. I'm going to lose a stone in 4 weeks, so I look good in my dress for the office party. That is the culture of yo-yo dieting. So it's got to be sustainable and be able to be in a lifestyle. I personally am happy to give examples of what to eat, but it needs to be realistic. When I have, in a sense, compromised and said, do what, I'm going to be quite specific about what you eat, for individuals, often they can do it for a short period of time, and then it's really difficult to do. So those of you that have had my nutrition information, my nutrition pack, because you're a client or I've worked with you before, you will see it's all based on kind of options of what would work really, really well. So you're essentially choosing things that work for you and building it out. And that being said, this thing of good and bad food, it's more like there's helpful food for your goals, and then there's unhelpful food for your goals. And all of it has its place, because being super restrictive often leads to periods of time of going, forget it, I can't do this, I'll just eat what I want. And then in a sense, you feel bad about it and you're back to square one. So I'll quickly run through some examples. There's some examples of breakfast there. And a good way to think about it is break it into those macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats. What will I have for breakfast that includes a good amount of protein? What can be my carbohydrate source? Where will fats potentially come from? And again, these are all examples. Lunch, the same. So that's a very, very short list. Just thinking about people that, in and out from work, or I need to take something with them, or whatever, carbohydrates could be fruit based within lunch as well. It's just really thinking about it. All my kind of clients get a much more extensive list and ideas about this. I really love when people come to me with an idea of, I've seen this recipe, we tried this, really, really good. Same with dinner. Maybe dinner is a meal you're going to have to, you're making to have with the rest of the family. Therefore, in an ideal situation, you don't want to be eating something different. And actually, maybe you want to get your family on board. Maybe if you've got kids, it's going to actually start to show them what is a sustainable, realistic, healthy nutrition plan, because you're following it and you bring them onto it as well. I'm definitely not saying that's easy, because with our small boys, they're very restrictive about what they'll eat, and it's taken currently to 2 years, and not much change with one, but the other one is now wanting to eat different things. So it's a really good thing. Conscious of the time, 8 minutes or so to go. Snacks, we say there's a whole range of snacks. There's so many different snack things we can buy, and moving this towards being helpful snacks rather than unhelpful snacks is kind of a whole section in itself. So there's some more examples there. Another factor often people focus on or ask me about is when to eat. Oh, I can't eat too late. Do I have to have breakfast? It doesn't matter too much. Honestly, it doesn't matter too much. You eat to suit you in terms of time frame and things like that. We'll talk in a minute about different diet strategies. One that's kind of really risen to prominence the last few years is intermittent fasting, as in eating in a timing window, sometimes described as skipping breakfast. It doesn't make too much difference once the calories day by day are kind of optimized, in the sense of when you've got your calories right, whatever time of day you eat, it's not going to make too much difference. Now, personally, you might feel better if you eat something a little bit later. You also might not feel great if you go to sleep having eaten quite close to the time you go to bed. It's going to just, again, come down to a bit of what works for you personally. So, touched on this, good versus bad food. I don't believe there's good food or bad food. There's food that's more helpful to move you towards your goals, and there's food that's less helpful in moving towards your goals. If you stay within your calories, that's not going to be an issue. You do want to kind of have the 80-20 rule of what is healthy. And again, that's another topic in itself, because there's so much confusion about what is actually healthy. But being sensible, that's going to be fine. If you're within your total calories, and I've saying here, looking at higher volume foods, which are generally more healthy foods, versus calorie dense foods, which are generally less healthy foods, you will be able to have quite a large volume of food, good volume of food, to help you feel full and have an enjoyable diet, and still be able to fit in something that you enjoy that you might deem as bad or unhealthy. But in the context of this, it's not actually going to do you any harm at all. It's probably going to be helpful to keep you on track with the rest of the time, because you had that slice of birthday cake, because you had those couple of biscuits, because you didn't have to exclude yourself from a social situation, because I know that I can have something here because I know about calories and I know about my intake and my output, and this is going to be okay. So, touching on diets. So, as I said, intermittent fasting, the second one down there, has really risen to prominence the last couple of years, last few years. Timed eating, otherwise known in the kind of in a flippant way as skipping breakfast, but it can work really well for people. Then we've got low carb, which comes from the theory that carbohydrates are what made me overweight, what made me put on all this weight. So I'm going to reduce those right down. But we need those carbohydrates. So it's about getting them in that right level. But low carb can work for some people. It doesn't work for other people at all, because their bodies run really well on carbohydrates. So they have to have that nice amount in. Another one that's risen to prominence for the last couple of years, but historically was called Atkins, really. is keto and carnivore, where you eat a high amount of meats and fats, dairy, try and aim to keep your carbohydrates down to a really, really low level. And that can work for some people. And then you've got things like vegan and vegetarian diets and lifestyles, which can be really good for weight management, fat loss. But essentially, without those last two and low carb, keto, carnivore, vegan, vegetarian, because you're cutting out whole food groups, it's really easy to get into a calorie deficit, and it actually reduces down the number of things you can choose from to eat. So it helps because you're going down a narrow path of this is what I'm going to eat. Also, now I've cut out some food groups, so they are not contributing to my calories in any significant way. Therefore, actually, the reason they work alongside Slimming World and this thing about clean food, not going to touch on that now, might be medical reasons for a diet. The reason they work is because they put you into a calorie deficit. There's no magic in intermittent fasting. There is some health benefits, to be fair, but there's no magic in terms of fat loss and weight loss to intermittent fasting. There's no magic doing keto or carnivore. Nothing physiologically. Yeah, your body's going to have plenty of protein to be working with, but actually, the reason it works in terms of fat loss and weight loss is because it's a calorie deficit. Now, some of the downsides of some of these things I've touched on, it can be too restrictive. There's no flexibility. You have no birthday cake. Kids having a birthday. Mummy, daddy, why aren't you having a piece of cake for my birthday cake? That's not really a very good, I personally think, a very good way to show dieting, in inverted commas, to your kids. Then you're going to maybe miss out on social things because I'm on keto, I can't have alcohol. It takes a lot of extra planning, which is fine if that's what you want to choose. You might miss out on vital nutrients because you're cutting out whole food groups. There's going to potentially, along the line, health implications. If you look, you don't have to look very far online to find a lot of stuff around issues with different diet strategies, shall we call them. There's actually quite a large now post-vegan movement, which is in a sense really interesting because, yeah, and then a lot of issues around keto and carnivore, lack of fiber, lack of micronutrients, all that sort of thing. It can be really helpful and suitable for some people to do for a period of time. We all know social media friend Sarah, you know, someone in the staff room, someone you work with. I've been following this. Isn't it amazing? Look what I've achieved. Great. Is it sustainable? Is it, have you now become the person that I can't come to staff do because I can't have any alcohol, and on the meals everything contains potatoes or chips? Do you want to be that person, or do you want to actually have flexibility in a realistic lifestyle? Which there says, after following the plan, what now? What happens then? That's the yo-yo dieting coming back in. So maintaining and maintaining results after weight loss and fat loss. Can it be a lifestyle? And it's also something to use 2 or 3 weeks after a period of deficit, maybe longer. A longer road to long-term weight loss and fat loss, kind of going for a period where doing weight loss and fat loss, calorie deficit, then come out of that, maintain, and then go back into that period. Just gives the body a break in time to actually, in a sense, be able to go again. A bit like training. You do it for a bit, you do an exercise, you rest, you go again. Calorie deficit for a period of time, rest from that, go again. And then building muscle, gaining weight, it's going to come down to extra calories, increasing carbohydrates, and using that to fuel workouts. I'm going to skip a couple of things. So tracking changes, use some scales and measurements. Waist and hips are most useful. I actually started an accountability group, which I will share about for that. And then this is kind of where we're going to finish. Not going to get onto the training stuff. Would you rather change what's on the scales or look and feel better? Both fit well, body shape, joint changes, but still weigh the same. This is why I often talk about weight loss / fat loss. If you had fat loss and looked loads better, wouldn't that be as good as the scales moving? So that's why they say the scales is a tool towards this. So I'm just going to carry this bit on here. Key points. Total calories for your goal, that is going to be a personal thing based on your body weight, age, gender, and activity. You would prioritize protein after total calories, prioritize protein. 0.8, 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. Carbs and fats to suit you. And then are we thinking, is it sustainable long term so it can become a lifestyle? Is it flexible enough to your needs? And what is the actual result you're aiming for? If you looked and felt better, but you weighed the same, particularly this would come around if you're doing training in the gym, would that be okay? Would that be a positive goal? Would that be a positive achievement, a thing to achieve? So putting kind of the scale weight a little bit to one side, use it as a tool to see how you're progressing, but would it be as good a result, as good an achievement if you actually went for, this is how I look, and for me as well, this is what I can do in the gym or with activity. I can run faster, I can run the same distance in a shorter time, I have more energy to play with my kids, I'm playing five-a-side again, I'm playing badminton, tennis, playing squash, things I never thought I'd be able to do, but because I've been following a healthy lifestyle, I can now do these things again. Isn't that as good, or actually for me, I would say, isn't that a bigger achievement than the weight on my weight on the scales has changed? They can go hand in hand, don't get me wrong, but that's really something to kind of think about. Is the weight on the scales the be all and end all? All right, there we go. A very quick run through of nutrition principles. Hope that's been beneficial. Any questions, drop me a comment, send me a message, send me an email, mark@buildingfitness.net. I'll be really happy to answer anything there.